This video is brought to you by Robinhood, the investment brokers that let you buy stocks, ETFs, and cryptocurrencies all commission free. There's still time to take advantage of this historic 2020 stock market crash, and if you sign up using the link in the description below, you'll instantly receive one free stock without even depositing a single penny. No, this still isn't my real portfolio, but I have added to it a bit, like the stock on your screen. That's Cody. They make like makeup, Revlon, stuff like that. What's up, YouTube? Capital G here. Got a very interesting match for you guys to check out. This is a duel that's going to be between Invoked Dragma, and the Invoked version of Dragma is currently the more successful build in the OCG, and Orcus, but not just any Orcus, full power Orcus. As you guys can see, you got the Harpor, you even got a Mobilize Engage. That these cards are banned in the TCG, and I think Harpor is like limited in the OCG, so this should be very interesting. And I will say, this is, even full power, probably not like the best build of Orcus, but I think it's at least a pretty legitimate build. Anyways, let's roll this and see exactly what's going to happen. So wow, even going and playing Destrudo, this guy's busting out all the ban cards. He's starting out with the Sky Striker engine, and you guys know that any two monsters in Yu-Gi-Oh! Basically a full Orcus combo. Actually, he's taking it even one step beyond. He's like, Cap, I'm gonna go into Halifabrax, then I'm gonna go into my Orcus combo. Okay, brother, you got it. Go ahead and get all the plays that you want. So I'm not sure what the purpose of getting the Sky Striker token was. I feel like he could have not even used Destrudo and just kind of used those two monsters, although I guess he needed a tuner for Halifabrax. To me, and this is just my opinion, to me, this was always when Orcus was at its absolute best, which there can be arguments about when that actually was. To me, Orcus was most scary when they had this card in particular. Oh my goodness. Orcus obviously has had many different variants, from the Azathoth build, like way back Thomas Rose, and then you had, other versions of Orcus. But when they had Rusty Bardiche, I'm talking about before they were even using Nightmare Mermaid, this was the card that put the fear of God in me, because basically you get two Fog Blades from this card, which is like two negations, and then you also could summon back Dingirsu and get rid of two cards on your opponent's side of the field. That was just nuts. This card was like a +4 basically. I mean, Rusty Bardiche, woo! I honestly think like he was hard carrying that deck. Now, unfortunately, one of his Fog Blades is already in the graveyard, so he's not going to get two of them, but he did set one already, and that means that he is going to go with the Shade Brigandine, I believe. But he's even doing some other things that you couldn't do back then. Obviously, he's going with Borreload, Savage Dragon, and some extra spicy plays. Yeah, this is Shade Brigandine. This should probably be another Fall Blade, but again, it's in his graveyard. If you had, I mean, this is the type of board where it's like, how do you even deal with this? You're talking double Fog Blade, a Borreload Savage, which, this didn't exist back then, but like, what would you do against this? You got double Monster Disruption, you got Protection with Dingirsu for like all your guys, you then have Borreload Savage Dragon, which is like another negation, but the Dragma deck, there are some ways. Anyways, he is going to use that terraforming, and he negated. I don't think he should have negated with Savage Dragon. Now, there's always a chance your opponent could be playing Mystic Mine. I feel like you got to let them search the mine and negate the mine. They got to show you that they're actually playing it. And if they have the mine, you got to negate it. Otherwise, you ain't playing no Yu-Gi-Oh! And that's unfortunate, but he is going to be able to break this board. See, the Dragma deck can activate its Rhoda. Its Rhoda allows them to send Nethys to the graveyard. That can get the material off of Dingirsu, which he has to use because you could just target it, and then you can hit him upside the head with a Lightning Storm or something more powerful. Now, he did bring back the Phantom Knights of Shade Brigandine, or excuse me, Rusty Bardiche, my bad. He's gonna use his copy of the Phantom Knights Fog Blade on the Magician Souls. Maybe that was worth it. I don't know. That's kind of debatable. He wanted to give up his Magical Meltdown to draw a card. I don't know if I would have used that. Regardless, he already used it, and that is definitely, I'm not sure if that's going to help his opponent, because now his opponent gets the Maximus Dragma on field, gets some searches, and he can start sending some of those shadow monsters to the grave. I didn't understand why the Dragma players were playing the shadow cards, but you guys will see in this duel. Anyways, he is going to bring back Dingirsu, and that means that he can get rid of some cards on his opponent's side of the field. This was like, again, always the crazy thing about the archetype to me, is the fact that they could take two of your cards. I don't know why he only took away one, but the fact that they could take two of your cards away during their turn. And I think it's going to be back to the Dragma. No, excuse me. it's still on the it's actually back to the Orcus player, and this is gonna kind of be the point where the duel gets equalized. So he's gonna activate the Shadow Rug, and he's gonna activate the Dragma Punishment. The Dragma Punishment is going to be the board breaking card because it sends the Nethys to the graveyard and it pops your opponent's highest attack monster. So basically you get two removal, like you get two monster removals basically out of one card, very similar to what the Orcus player was just doing. And at this point, game's pretty much over. He's gonna pop another one of his opponent's cards using that Fossil Warrior Skull Knight, which all these fusion monsters that destroy stuff, you're going to see all these cards in the Dragma deck. And when his opponent is trying to wall up, all you got to do is take some of those monsters off the field, and then usually you can summon Winda using your graveyard against your opponent when it looks like they want to go ahead and try to summon. So you can see he goes for Rhoda. He says, nah bro, I'm not about to let you get a bunch of monsters on field. I'm gonna go for this El Shaddai Winda. It's gonna lock up your ability to, you know, special summon monsters, and let's see if you can play around this. And usually Winda is just good enough to win the game against Orcus builds. Basically, like, I guess if they had, you know, the Phantom Knights of Fogblade, they'd be able to play around it, but generally speaking, Orcus is going to struggle against Winda. And I think it's kind of crazy that the Shadow deck, or the Dragma deck, will send these Shadow monsters like Aquapone. They'll send them from the extra deck to the graveyard, and then they'll search Shadow Rug out, which means they only need to run one copy, and then they'll summon Winda during your opponent's, or during your turn if you're playing against them, which is just kind of crazy to me. Anyways, the second duel, again, seems like he has a good opening hand. I mean, anytime you open with Engage, it looks pretty good to me. I mean, well, just one Engage is like a full Orcus combo, basically. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of crazy. Instead, he's going to go with the Trickstar engine, which, of course, was also a full Orcus combo. You just normal summon Candina and insert Light Stage, and then you get your Carabane, and boom, two monsters, full Orcus combo. But I don't know if it's going to be the greatest. He's going to get caught in a choke point. You guys will see exactly when that is. And the choke point is going to be right here with Rusty Bardiche. He does have his copy of Eagle Booster, but he has a monster in the main monster zone. This means he's not going to be able to get those Fog Blades, and that definitely sucks because you're missing out basically on two disruptions against your opponent. So no Fog Blades for him, which means his turn one board is going to be significantly weaker, and I think he might be susceptible to some of those board wipes. Now, he did decide to go for the orchestrated Babel play instead of getting the orchestrated Climax or orchestrated Crescendo play. Look, I've always been a fan of the Crescendo, dude. Give me a freaking counter trap, and this is why. Because sometimes when you get the Crescendo, it's too late. You can't use it this turn. You got a big board full of cards, and your opponent says enter battle phase, and you're just like, guess I just lose now. So yeah, the board breaking cards definitely coming in handy. I did tell you guys that you know, the Dragma deck was going to be a blind go second deck because you need your opponent to have extra deck monsters on the field to maximize it. This was also a key critical mistake that he made. I've actually done this in the past, so I'm not gonna like hammer him too badly. You can usually use Ghost Bell and Haunted Mansion on Invocation because it tries to banish cards from the graveyard. However, if they have Magical Meltdown on the field, it will not negate the summon. It actually, it's legal to use Ghost Bell, it just doesn't do anything. So they still get the monster. Believe me, I've done that multiple times. Like I couldn't figure out why it wasn't working for the longest time, and then I finally sat down and I realized it. Anyways, I think anytime that you get Maximus on field, I think you're probably going to end up winning because you can just keep using those Nethys. I think he used he used Nethys on the Babel, which forced out the negation, or it forced out the protection of Dengirsu. Then he just, you know, used Nethys again because it's not a hard once per turn, and load up for Al Capone. Al Capone can then get you your Shadow Rug, and at that point, you're pretty much already set up for Winda. Keep in mind, Alistair the Invoked is Dark Attribute, so getting Winda on the field is like stupidly easy. I think he might even, okay, not yet. I was going to say, I think he might even be ready to go for it right now. You're going to see a little play here, and you're going to see some monsters go down. I think Makaba is going to negate the Widow Anchor, and not Widow Anchor, Eagle Booster. I can never remember this card's name specifically, but ultimately he is going to summon Winda, and the duel's just about over at this point. Pretty much same exact thing that we saw in the first game. Once the Dragma deck is able to establish Winda on field, it doesn't really need the special summon because it doesn't use its extra deck like boss monsters. I mean, yeah, you just throw them. I mean, it has like extra deck cards, but you just throw them into the graveyard. You rarely ever need to summon the Bastard Dragon Although you definitely can. It's a nice card to summon off a Super Poly, not gonna lie. But for the most part, you don't actually have to summon it. You just keep sending it to the graveyard. Anyways, Orcus player hasn't scooped yet, but don't worry, he's probably about to scoop during this turn. Gonna use that Skull Fossil, pop the copy of Kagari, and now it's just beat him into submission. The game is over, man. I was surprised, although I will say this. Let's just admit, the Orcus player, even though he was playing full power Orcus, he probably played really poorly. I don't actually know. Should full power Orcus even be playing Eagle Booster? I mean, I think they did at one point, but I don't know if I'd run that now because, yeah, there are definitely some choke points where if your opponent catches you with a monster in the main deck, Eagle Booster just turns itself off. I do remember them playing this when they were playing like Golden Castle, because I believe what they would do is they would try to use Eagle Booster when they were going for Nightmare Mermaid. Yeah, that's what I think that they would do. If it got like Effect Veilered or Ash Blossom, they would try to use Eagle Booster on that. So yeah, I guess it did make sense that he was running Eagle Booster. Anyways, we'll check out the Dragma deck for a hot second. Okay, so this is what the Dragma deck looks like on paper. It looks just kind of how I would expect it. And, you know, even though people say this is a deck that's really only being carried by Invoked, I'm not sure about that. I kind of feel like Dragma, even if something were to happen to the Invoked engine where it wasn't very splashable anymore, I still feel like this deck would be perfectly fine as long as it was a blind go second deck. I feel like it would still be competitive because still the fact that like they have access to so many strong breakboard cards, they naturally want to go second anyways, which makes the break your board cards like Lightning Storm and Evenly Match even better. And then the fact that they can kind of just play like the Shadow monsters and they can go into Winda and stop combo decks after they've broken the turn 1 board, which pretty much seals the game. That made me change my opinion. As you guys saw, it was very easy. Again, I kind of questioned how they were going to be able to play Winda, but you saw it in both duels. It's really not that difficult. Send Al Capone to the graveyard, then search out Rug, and then basically as long as you have another dark monster in the graveyard, your Winda is going to be set up. So yeah, if you guys are interested in this, of course it will be in the description below, but don't be surprised if Invoke gets hit in the future if you see this, the Dragma deck as another one of many decks that incorporate the Numeron cards into their deck. Thank you guys for watching. As always, subscribe if you have not already and turn on that notification bell for daily videos.